What makes a hero? Is it the ability to throw a baseball over 100 miles per hour? Or hit 450-foot home runs? Or is it courage, bravery, and unselfishness, willing to go to great lengths to fight for what you believe in? The National Baseball Hall of Fame has plenty of the former types of heroes, but we need to talk more about the latter. Cy Rosenthal could be considered one of these heroes. He played for the Red Sox in 1925 and 1926. Cy was the first Jewish player for the Red Sox, and this is significant because today we rightfully recognize the struggle that Black and Latino players had in breaking into the major leagues, but we don't often acknowledge the difficulty that Jewish players faced. Domestic anti-Semitism was particularly rampant in the 1920s and 1930s, leading into the Great Depression. Newspapers and magazines commonly printed anti-Semitic articles and cartoons. Jews were excluded from social clubs and openly faced discrimination in job opportunities. Many towns adopted zoning regulations to prevent the sale of land and houses to Jews, and many universities imposed strict quotas on the number of Jews that they would admit. I'm only going to speak about Cy's baseball career briefly because, honestly, it's just a footnote in his life. He did have a 14-year professional career. He started out with the Hartford Senators in 1922 in the Eastern League, played with the Pittsfield Hillies, the Albany Senators, and then the San Antonio Bears in the Texas League, before making the big leagues with Boston at the end of 1925. He became an everyday outfielder for the Red Sox in 1926, where he hit .267 with a mediocre .689 OPS. He would be sent down to Double-A for 1927, never to return to the bigs. But Cy Rosenthal's story really started after his baseball career was over. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, Cy and his son Irwin, nicknamed Buddy, were like many Americans. They were anxious to enlist. Cy was a bit old at the time, 38, and Buddy a bit young, just 15. Buddy was able to fudge his age and join the Marine Corps, but Cy was denied because of loose cartilage in his knee and bad teeth. Cy said goodbye to Buddy and went home to his business. He operated a tin can company in South Boston. It didn't take long for Cy to decide he just was not going to accept the Navy's decision that he was not fit for service. He paid for knee surgery to have the troublesome cartilage removed and then had some expensive dental work done so that he could pass the physical requirements. He went back to the Navy and was inducted on September 22, 1942, just over 9 months after the Pearl Harbor attack. He promptly sold his tin can business and joined his son in the war. Cy wrote to his son often, as recorded in his Sabre biography by Bill Nolan, quote, "I had been corresponding with Buddy pretty regularly," Cy remembered. On putting in at Norfolk in February of 1944, I found a mass of my letters to him had been returned, and I had received no word from him in a long time. Then I learned of his death. Buddy had been killed in the Pacific Theater on Christmas Day 1943, or possibly the day after, during an assault in the Solomon Islands. The Marine Corps lost 325 men in that battle. On May 5, 1944, Seaman First Class Rosenthal set sail in European waters. He said, quote, "My mine layer, the USS Miantonomah, got around quite a bit," he recalled. On D-Day, she was off Omaha Beach, performing a few minor services for the USS Texas. She seemed to be a pretty lucky mine layer, and on September 25, 1944, she had just come out of Le Havre, France, heading for Plymouth, England, and from there she was going to Boston. It was a raw day, around 2:30 in the afternoon. I was going to go on watch in about 20 minutes, and I was sitting on deck reading the Reader's Digest. Next thing I knew, there was an explosion, and I was pirouetting through the air. Then I was in the water. I couldn't swim, but my life jacket was holding me up, and soon I felt a terrific heaviness from the waist down. After a while, I could see our chief pharmacist swimming over towards me. He grabbed me and pulled me over to a life raft. He got me on it somehow, and I sort of half-landed, half-rolled onto a couple of other men. More time passed on a small British boat, a lot like one of our PT boats, came out and took me aboard. The men on the British boat looked at the two men on whom I was lying. Both were dead. The USS Miantonomah had struck a mine. She sank about 20 minutes after the explosion with a loss of 58 officers and men. Rosenthal was paralyzed from the waist down, and he would never walk again. He spent time at hospitals in France and England before returning to the United States and further hospitalization. Sy used a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Though of modest means, Rosenthal himself was known for charitable work of his own. He helped raise money for a number of causes. In 1952, while in the Cushing Hospital in Framingham, he learned of a family whose house had been destroyed by fire, and from his hospital bed, Sy offered them the use of his home. In 1966, he worked to raise money for a school gymnasium at St. Augustine Seminary at Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. Here was a Jew working with a Protestant minister to raise money for a Catholic institution. The seminary was, in the 1920s, the first Roman Catholic seminary to accept African Americans. A story in the Jewish Advocate reported that, quote, "There is barely an hour when he is free from pain, but that he devoted his life to trying to help his fellow man." The account detailed the help he had given to a boy afflicted with polio, a girl who was blind, two sisters stricken with cerebral palsy. All three cases led to his involvement in fundraising for the respective causes. He was 3 times the president of the New England chapter of Paralyzed Veterans of America and active in numerous other organizations. Sy was also active in assisting a number of Little League teams in the greater Boston area. The Boston Lodge of Elks noted in 1962 that due to his extensive work with the Little Leaguers, though himself wheelchair-bound, the Sy Rosenthal Little League Stadium was erected in Dorchester. A Father Owen McGrath wrote of Sy, saying, quote, "The tragedies in his life would have embittered most men. They have ennobled old Sy. He loved God and his fellow man. In spite of his handicap and constant pain, he radiates happiness. He seems to possess heroic fortitude, but in our eyes, his greatest quality is generosity of heart. He is just miserable when he is not doing good for his fellow man. His various charitable commitments would be exhausting for a much younger person. How he manages to always find time to visit the sick, pay friendly calls, and give his inspiring talks to clubs and church organizations, we can never understand. Would that his good example were not only admired, but imitated." Sy Rosenthal died a hero in the Veterans Administration Hospital in West Roxbury, Massachusetts, of heart failure on April 7, 1969.